Hello, and welcome to the AgriBusiness Global Report. My name is Sarah Webb, and I'm editor of AgriBusiness Global and host of today's show. In this segment, I speak with Bob Trogele, CEO of ProAgInvest, about the recent price hikes in China's agrochemical industry, what this means for the industry, how companies can adjust, and more. Thanks for joining. Bob, thank you so much for joining me today. What do you expect to be the long and short term impacts of the recent price hikes in the Chinese agrochemical industry?
Good morning, Sarah. Always a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for inviting me. You're asking a tough question because things are very fluid right now. But if you really look at the China situation, I think I see the Chinese domestic market to be quite stable in pricing. Then I see the export market prices going slightly up. And one area that they've been going up is on phosphorus-based products like glufosinate ammonia, where the value-added tax is no longer in effect. So there's not a rebate to the basic manufacturer as far as exporting. And since a lot of the overproduction in China, prices have already been fairly close to the production cost. I don't see uh, in that category nothing but a continued price increase of maybe like 10-15% at least. Okay. Then if you take the other categories where that's not happening, I think there'll be an opportunity here for the manufacturers to slowly increase prices because they're so low already, right? They're not making money. If you look at some of the financial results of the Chinese manufacturers, it's not pretty, right?
Mhm.
So, but I do believe that momentarily the issue is, from what I'm hearing, that people are very hesitant to move very quickly on that.
Okay.
Okay. So that's kind of the scenario. And then, if you look at what's driving this is, of course, the energy situation,
Mhm.
right? And, from what I understand, this will hit India much harder from a pricing perspective than it will hit China. And the reason there is the Chinese government has done an excellent policy of diversifying their energy sources.
Mhm.
So if you look at most of their most of their fertilizer production is coal uh, energy instead of gas energy. So they don't have that pressure, right? Um, and now where they are, where they will feel things is if when they have to import certain raw materials um, into the market, for example, solvents, right?
Mhm.
Um, then the outward costs will increase, logistics, freight, right? So those things will actually find its way through the market. Right now, I don't think we're seeing very much because the situation is um, there's a lag, right?
Okay.
So, oil supply in China, for example, they've got a 7-month buffer, right? So let's say if this war ends very quickly and oil prices globally come down, and I'm expecting that, by the way, okay?
Okay.
I don't think it'll come down to like the low 60s or 50s anymore. I think it's going to be probably West Texas oil will probably be around the high 70s,
Okay.
and Brent will be, as usual, like maybe in the mid 80s, right? So it's not going to be an oil shock like we've had in the past. And the question just is when, right?
Mhm.
Is that going to happen? Is it going to happen sooner or it's going to happen later? But there is a fundamental issue that people should be aware of. And that is that while we were running in a 2.5 uh, million barrel surplus, now we're running in a 2.5 million deficit. Okay.
Okay.
And that's driven by demand. That's not driven by this war. Okay. That's just general. That's just the way the market is forming itself. And I think the energy demand is going to continue to grow because as we enter into building these large, digital data centers around the country and then globally, some of it's going to be nuclear powered, but some of it is still based on fossil fuels, and to drive the growth in artificial intelligence, um, I think it's just going to be enormous with the amount of energy you use for that.
Okay. And you mentioned that, this is a very fluid situation, but do you have any advice for companies on how they can adjust to this situation?
I do. Um, First of all, we this is not the first time that energy prices have gone up or disruption has happened. Kind of, study history a little bit and learn from the past. What did you do in the past, right?
Mhm.
You can, speculate and hedge, and some people are surely doing that. Certainly, if you're on the supply side of this, you will want to communicate and keep people informed. And then you could play, of course, inventory strategies from a speculation basis on energy, right?
Mhm.
And then I think as far as the chemical price hikes or even fertilizer price hikes, I think you've got to understand that we've gone away from a traditionally, I mean, long term, okay, I'm talking time now, 40, 50 years from a patented high margin business, right, to a off patent lower margin business.
Okay.
And I think, companies are struggling just on that alone, and this will just increase the pressure. So really you have to look at, how do I re-engineer my business? How do I bring in technology like let's say artificial intelligence, which we talked about,
Mhm.
to make your business more efficient? How do you take cost out, right? How do you make your technical service do, you know, provide a better service and, maybe cover more acres?
Mhm.
Uh, can I streamline my supply chain better? So things like that. And then I think the next thing is that you got to really target specific segments which are going to benefit from this. Like right now, the big benefit of the biofuels,
Mhm.
right? As energy prices go up, so does, biofuel, right? And then the other piece, which is probably important, is if your inputs on the chemical side and on the, let's say, fertilizer side, the nutritional side, are too expensive for the farmer and he's starting to reduce his demand, maybe
Mhm.
you can help him supplement that with biological products, right?
Okay.
So, like
Mhm.
if you talk about, nitrogen, maybe, a nitrogen fixation product, which can lower the dose rate of the bulk nitrogen, right?
Okay.
So that's another area. And then I think, I mean, people, we've been doing this for years, but you just got to get better at it. You got to, get better at precision application technology,
Mhm.
right? So, think about an acre service price that a farmer can afford versus, a input price and let the farmer decide how much he's going to use, right? So it's
Okay.
pricing models could be very interesting. One thing that I would advise everyone is, in summary, is not adjusting now is not an option.
Thanks so much for joining for this segment of the Agribusiness Global Report. I'm your host, Sarah Webb. Until next time.